Well, hello there again, friends. Today is 5/14/2022, and today is the Odin Project vlog day 102. And today is we'll call it part 4B. I won't go into the requirements because that was done in the last video, so if you need a refresher on the requirements list for this section, please go ahead and watch the previous video. So we'll just get started right away. Um, this has been a challenging project so far for me personally. And I think the main reason is because none of us really up to this point, if you've been following along, have been really paying any attention to scope because we've been putting everything in global, which as we've been talking, the whole point of this project really is to put everything inside of a module or a factory. So you really have to be mindful of scope. So one of the things I had to do was mess around with scope a little bit, and one of the things I had to do also is, if you noticed, I moved, so create player, my module for creating the player is now been moved to the top. Game board module was at the top, but I had to move create player because, as you can see, there's a lot going on, and we're going to go over all this, but just giving you the top layer knowledge here, or 30,000 foot answer, is that I had create player below in between game board module and display controller, I believe, in the previous videos, and I was getting a lot of lexical declaration errors, which basically means that I was trying to call a function or call a object of any sort, really, that wasn't yet initialized, so I was getting an error and it wouldn't let me continue. So that's the 30,000 foot view answer of why I moved things around a little bit. So let's just get started. So create player has changed dramatically. So basically what I've done here is I completed the last part of section 4, which we'll call today section 4B. So in the last video we were able to wire up the click function to display the array contents to the grid box. Today we are now sorting out our users, or our players, and then also dynamically updating that array, and then applying that to the already previously created module for rendering. So with all that said, we'll get started here. Some of this may not make sense until you see it in the browser, so just hang on with me. I'm going to go through the code first, and then we'll see it in the browser. So for create player, we're going to loop through 2 times. This makes sense because this is how it kind of gets started. I will show you the only thing in display controller module I changed. This is all the same from last time, but I added gameboard module.makePlayerMove as a function, and so it calls that at the end of for each. So each time inside of this, sorry, not the for each, inside of this render array to screen function. So basically every time the event, each button is clicked, it's going to call render array to screen. So I put render array to screen here, which I believe I went over that in the last video. If not, I'd move that too. So it's a local function, but it also, at the very last section here, the last code, it actually calls make player move, and that's so that it will invoke a different section in here, which is right here, make player move, part of the game board module. Sorry, it's early in the morning yet here. I don't normally make this on Saturday morning, so it was too late Friday night for me to make a video, so I apologize, I was in the wrong module. But anyway, we'll go over that, but it makes the player move here. So creating the players, you want to get that set up first. So first we're going to do a for loop. So we have to do let I equals 0, I less than 4, I plus plus. We've been over that 100 times before. So it's a standard for loop. The reason why I put 4 in here is because we know there's only 2 players to a game. However, through the way I wrote this out, again, as I say with everything, this isn't the best way. It may not be, it's not the only way. It's just the way I did it. It's my way. So there's some places in here that have like a try catch. Like here's a try catch. It's not actual try catch, but it's kind of doing that. It's checking to see if the player name that was prompted here was either not entered, either they hit cancel or OK without putting anything in, or if it's null. We're going to alert sorry name can't be blank, and continue will loop it back up into the array to continue on. And so we're going to give them 3 to 4 tries. 3 if it's already looped through once, 4 if it hasn't looped through at all. And we're going to give them multiple tries to get the name in before we just close the screen and make them click the button again. So basically, in order to get this factory started, they have to see. I came down here inside of this code here. Sorry, I'm jumping around a bit, but this has to flow right. So inside of the display control module, we have a section for listen, for click, and start the game. So I created a constant variable called start game button, and it takes on the query selector start game button, which we created in the last video, which is right here, start game button. And I just renamed it to add players / start game. I think last time it just said start game. And then that takes on an add event listener. We're waiting for that click, and it's going to call create player. So when it calls that create player, it's going to come up here and start this for loop. We're going to do a check first. And so for gives them multiple chances to get this right. So there's a check. And the check here is we want to make sure that the game board module player array length, and we have to do that because the player array is not accessible here, but through game board module, since it's in its own module that's self-invoked. But we want to make sure that the array length is equal to or greater than 6. And that just means that if there's less than 6, I created a new player array, I should say that. So I have 2 arrays. I have the game board array, and then in this video I created a player array because I needed a way to track the players. And so you see I commented out the return statements because I didn't want to have issues with duplicate variables with different names, different values for the same variable, and it would make the code very unusable. So instead of creating player 1, player name 1, and player name 2, etc., I decided just to not return variables and create a array. So basically, this checks the array to make sure that there is not more than 6. Otherwise, we're going to break out of this loop, and we're also going to call the make player move, which we'll go over here in a bit, but I just introduced here a moment ago. So if this is true, meaning that the player array does not have 2 people in it, it's 6 because you'll see this in the code or in the browser. There are 3 object properties to each person that gets inputted, and it will be player name, player number, and assigned XO. And so 6 would equal 2 people, 3 and 3. It's not super clean that way, but it works, and I'm just going to go with it. So basically, as long as there's less than that, meaning we haven't filled it all in, we're going to go ahead and continue. So we have an else if here. So if the player array length equals 0, meaning there's nothing in it, we're going to prompt for the first player, what is your first name? We get that, we put it into player name, and then here's that error check. So it'll loop back through. We already went over that. So we continue on and say they put in their correct name. We're going to auto assign player number 1, assign XO equals X. So the first person will always be player 1, and they will be X. And then we give them alert saying you are player 1 and your assigned letters X, so that they know. And then we're also then going to do gameboardmodule.playerArray.push. So we're just simply pushing player name, player number, and assigned XO into that array, so that it's sitting in there and exists. We're going to just show a console.log for diagnostic purposes, saying show me the contents of the player array, and it just spits that out. And then else if the player array does not equal 0, meaning it has a contents in it, basically it has the first user in it, we're going to prompt what is your first name, sir. And I put sir in there as like a diagnostic thing, so when I seen it alert on in the browser, I knew that I was in the second if section for the second player, and I wasn't in the first one because I had an exact same prompt at the beginning, and I didn't know which one I was on. So that's why it says that. And then here's the same catch or error check. We do not want it to be blank or null. If it is, we're going to tell them it cannot be blank, and they'll have to retry. And then we have a player assignment of 2 and assigned XO of O. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to push it, and we're going to spit out the player array so we can see that it's being pushed properly, and then we move on. And this is commented out. This is in here from a couple videos ago in case I need to use it. Reference it. I have it. I will delete it before the project's over, but we're not over yet. So there's the create player. So now we go down to the game board module. This is the make player move that I was referring to earlier. That gets called. It gets called in up here for make player move, and it gets called. And this does this because we're inside that loop yet. So when it loops through that last time and it makes this check, and it does equal 6, meaning we have both players loaded, we want to get that player moving and get that game going. So that's why that's there. And I also have it down here so that when the button is clicked on and all the magic happens that we talked about in the last video for the rendering of the game board array to the screen, we want to call make player move again to get the game rolling again to the second. So basically, there's two different spots where it does that. So here's the magic for the make player move. First off, we're going to check for 2-player submission in game board array. Make sure the game board array doesn't spill over the grid boxes, and that's just by this simple if statement. So if player array dot length equals 6 and game board array dot length is less than 9, we're going to go ahead and go through the if statements, and this section here controls the player moves. We'll go over in a second. So basically, if the length of the player array is not 6, we're not going to enter this because that just simply is another check. It's like an extra failsafe, and it basically means that we do not have something errored out or the user hit cancel or null. Anyway, there's not 6, meaning there's 3. As you know, there 2 players will have 3 attributes or parameters per player. So if there's not 6, it means there's something wrong. So we're gonna break out here and not enter that if. And game board length is less than 9. So before I didn't have this and it worked, but the problem was it just kept spilling over. The alerts kept coming up even as you got to the 9th box, and so I put less than 9 so that you don't keep getting the the player 1 make your move, or you don't get alerted anymore after the boxes have been filled. So that's why I put this and it's an ampersand and meaning that both these have to be true, and that satisfied that problem for spillover. So hopefully that makes sense. So here's controllers for the player moves. This is not too hard to understand. So we have game board.length, so it's just kind of the same algorithm as earlier. So we have if the length is 0, that means that there's nothing in there. So we're going to alert player 1, please make your move. Player 1 makes their move, and then we're going to push. We're going to push the game board player array position 2, and position 2, if you remember, is player number. So at least on the first one. So we want. Is that right? No, it's assigned. Sorry, it's assigned XO because indexes start 0. So you have 0 for player name, 1 for player number, and 2 for assigned XO. So we're gonna push assigned XO. I know it's not the cleanest, but I didn't really want to go back and do object constructors for this because it's not part of this exercise. So we're gonna push in the assigned XO at index 2, and then we're just gonna console log show me the current game board array just for diagnostic purposes. Else if game board, and then I had to do this in here in brackets, game board.length equal -1, and so what that does, I think we went over that before, but that gets shows not the whole array, but just the most recent far right item. And so if it equals X, we're going to alert player 2, please make your move, because X was for player 1. So we're going, and then we'll push the player array position index 5, which is the assigned XO variable position for player 2, because 0, 1, 2, and then 3, 4, 5, so 3 more would be the second player's assignment, which is going to be I want to say Y for some reason. Anyway, and then we cancel out log, show me the current game board array for diagnostic purposes, and then we have another else if the again the last one is O, we're going back to player 1 because player 2 is O, and then we're going to push the array. We're going, and then remember, as the array is being pushed, we are waiting. Basically, the code the display controller is a module, so it's as you see down here, it's got that open parentheses, so it's being constantly invoked. So at that point we're waiting for the click to happen and for all this to process, and that's when the game player move is called again, and that's how we keep the flow control going. And then we're going to return game board player array, which are the 2 arrays, and make player move. We have to expose that in the return so that we can use it in the other module. And I think that's it. It was a lot of explaining. I knew it would probably go a little longer in the explanation, but I hope that made sense. I went through it kind of fast, so please rewatch this for further understanding. And then I just commented this out. This is that test def we were using before. I'm glad I left it just for learning purposes, because I did end up using it, that exact logic, for the when I created the make player move. Because if you see, if you notice, that's a private function, but I made it public by putting it into the return as a property. So that's cool. So I used it as a property to be called, but cool enough, when you put the parentheses after it, excuse me, it becomes an exposed function. What am I trying to think of? So yeah, that's that. And then for styling, the only thing I did differently is I added a margin top of 25 pixels for start game button, and all that does is excuse me, creates 25 pixels of gap between the end of the game board and the top of the start game button, so it wasn't jammed up at the bottom. So we'll take a look at this now, and I don't think anything changed yet in the HTML. So let's go ahead and take a peek. Okay, so here's what you start off with. So there's that gap. So we start out here. You see, if you click it, it'll still do it because the module is exposed and invoked publicly immediately. So, but there's nothing being played because we don't have any players set, and there's nothing in the array. So we got to hit the add player, start game, and prompt. Here's your prompt. What is your first name? Let's do Justin. And it says you are player 1 and you are assigned letter X. What's your next person? We'll say Ben. Excuse me. Ben is player 2 and his assigned letter is O. And now it says, here we go. So now we're down to that section controlled inside of the make player move. We have player 1, please make your move. So now it applied. You see it pushed the X because we know we auto assigned X to player 1, and then we're going to wait. So we'll just click here. So now it noticed and it called again for the next player. So we got X there. It applied correctly. Now it says player 2 make your move. So now we're going through the other if statement, and we're going to select here. Now see it applied O. I can't really see it because the dialogue's in the way. There's probably a better way to do it. I could, get fancy and print it on the screen versus have prompts, but it's just what I went with. Probably not going to change it at this point because I've already spent a ton of time on this project and would like to move on at some point. We're not even done with it yet, but anyway, we're back to player 1. So you see there's player 2's O, and my X for player 1, player 2, O, and we'll just finish these out. Logic works great. And see what it's doing right here. It's updating, so we're making sure that, as in the previous view, those values match, and then we're going ahead and rendering, and then we're showing the array each time. It's the game board array each time. So at the end here, you see 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and there's 9 spaces, and that's that stop, and then that if statement that's at the top of the make player move. Right here is stopping that from continuing. So before I had that in there, this would continue to ask you to move, and it would flow over the array, and it basically wouldn't have anything to fill in because there's no more grid boxes, but it would continue to ask you. So that logic there works great for that to stop it. And that is it. So again, there's probably cleaner, easier, better ways to do this. So, but this is just the way I did it. So if we look at our let's see, where's a player array at? Maybe game board module dot player array, just to show you what this looks like. So there's your 6. So this is what I was talking about earlier. It's easier to show you visually, I think. So here's the array for the player array inside a game board module. So you have 0 position, 0 index Justin. This is the auto assigned player number, and this is the string X for the game piece. And then here's the Ben input on index 3. Index 4 is player 2, and index 5 is game piece O. So there's that. And so that's how we had the index being placed at position 2 in the code, and then we had position 5, as you've seen in the code, for O to be passed into the passed from player array to game board. I probably should have wrote game board array, but game board anyway. So that's it. So as you can see, I have no, otherwise I would have said O at 1 or whatever. There's 3 O's. I don't have any logic put in for the winner yet because that hasn't happened yet. So if you go back to the requirements here, we have step 5 will build logic that checks for when the game is over. Should check for 3 in a row and a tie. So next time, so I believe number 4 is complete. As you can see, I've already kind of did number 6 because I needed to get the display to work correctly so I could see the flow of the game to make sure it worked correctly. So I kind of skipped around a little bit, and I did did a little bit of 6. So clean up the interface, allow players to put in their names, which I did, as you've seen, and include a button to start and restart the game. The button doesn't well, I guess it does restart the game. So I've kind of got that completed too. And we added, and it says to add a display element that congratulates the winner player, and I have not done that yet. So there'll be a little bit more to do there, just a little bit, and then the biggie shouldn't be too hard. I just got to figure out logically where to put it so it exposes the correct variables and has access to the correct scopes. But building the logic that checks for when the game is over will be for the next video. So hope that all makes sense. I know this I went fast and it's a little bit longer of a video, but I didn't want it to go over forever, and go on forever, excuse me. So I don't think I missed anything. Please watch it for further understanding. Don't forget to push your commits to GitHub to track your versioning. And please like, share, and subscribe for more content. And let me know in the comments section how you guys are doing. And the method, if yours is different than mine, that's cool. Let me know how you guys are setting up your tic-tac-toe project. So with all that said, till next time, see ya.